want to thank my colleague, Senator Durbin, for leading efforts this week to undo Betsy DeVos' harmful rollback of protections for millions of Americans with student loans ripped off by shady for-profit colleges. This is an example where the Senate stood up to the president, stood up to the billionaire Secretary of Education, whose mission in that job is to privatize public education and turn profits for her and her friends and her allies. And this Senate bipartisanly stood up to her, stood up to the president, stood up to the majority leader, and did the right thing. We've seen these for-profit colleges in Ohio, schools like Corinthian and ITT. They make big promises with fake, and this is the time the word fake is accurate. They make big promises with fake or deceptive job placement rates. They spend millions on misleading marketing. They trick students into taking out huge loans, only to close up shop and leave them with meaningless degrees, or worse yet, just credits, but always mountains of debt. These are people trying to get an education to improve their job prospects, to build a better life for themselves and their families. Too often, these predatory schools target black students, Latino students, immigrants, low-income students, first-generation college students. Many of them are veterans returning from serving our country, starting and looking to start a new career. These for-profit colleges are willing to exploit people who have taken out loans to go there, who are veterans. Sometimes they go to school, they serve their country, they come back, they go to school, and they're willing to take advantage of them. These for-profit schools, it's all about lining the pocket of their CEOs. We need to stand with defrauded student borrowers. We need to hold these for-profit schools accountable. But of course, we've learned not to hold our breaths when it comes to the Trump administration holding anyone accountable, at least holding anyone rich and powerful accountable. Instead of figuring out how to provide relief for students, Secretary DeVos, Betsy DeVos, went to work figuring out how to let the schools that scammed them off the hook. 300,000 people have submitted borrower defense claims as of last December. More than 200,000 of those requests are still pending. More than 7,700 Ohioans, 7,700 people in my state are waiting for relief. In 2016, the Obama administration announced a rule to help these students get their loans canceled. But, Madam President, the DeVos Department of Education, the Trump Department of Education, dragged its feet on processing borrower defense claims. They rewrote the rule to make it damn near impossible for defrauded students to get the relief they were promised. They are throwing up hurdle after hurdle, narrow time limits, making students gather all kinds of unnecessary paperwork, banning students from appealing a decision. DeVos's rule opens up the doors for schools to once again use mandatory arbitration. I'm not a lawyer, but I know from seeing this done to far too many of my constituents, it's legal fine print that for-profit schools sneak into their enrollment agreements that deny students their day in court. Students don't know they're part of these agreements. They lose their day in court. I hear from Ohioans all the time who have been scammed by these schools. Tasha Burkhalter came to Washington last month to bring attention to this important issue. She's an Army veteran. She served our country with honor. She's a mother of 4. She returned home. She wanted to do forensics with the FBI, so she enrolled in ITT's criminal justice program. She didn't think of it as a for-profit school. She didn't know she was about to get scammed. She had served our country. She wanted to serve our country further. She went to this for-profit school. ITT told her that her GI benefits would cover the full tuition and they'd help her get a job after graduation. But when she began to suspect the program wasn't the high-quality education that it claimed and tried to transfer, she found out that no other legitimate schools would accept her ITT credits. The supposedly high-tech school was using outdated books. Faced with a choice of continuing at ITT or starting completely over, she finished her degree. She ended up $100,000 in debt. Remember, Madam President, ITT told her the GI Bill would cover everything, well, except for $100,000. She ended up $100,000 in debt with a degree that unfortunately employers didn't take seriously. Those are the people that Secretary DeVos, those are the people that President Trump, with his own Trump University, want to take over our higher education system. Now she's lost her shot at using the GI benefits she earned. She's drowning in debt. Ms. Burkholder and other student veterans defrauded by shady schools deserve better than the treatment they're getting under Betsy DeVos. Not only is Betsy DeVos refusing to help, her new borrower defense rule will let other for-profit colleges continue to run the same scams on other students and student veterans. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is supposed to crack down on these schools and on loan servicing companies that handle people's student loans. That's why we created the CFPB, to look out for people like Ms. Burkholder. But under President Trump, under Betsy DeVos, they refuse to let the CFPB look into loan services that are scamming students. I asked the CFPB director today about this. We've been asking her for a year to take this over and make it work. She continues to yield to her billionaire friend in the cabinet, Secretary DeVos, who's a billionaire friend of the billionaire president, and has no effort and no interest in making them accountable. President Trump's CFPB director is rolling over, refusing to do her job, protecting the tens of millions of Americans with student loans. It comes back, Madam President, always to whose side are you on? Are you going to stand with student veterans, or are you going to stand with these for-profit CEOs, these CEOs of for-profit schools that are literally making millions of dollars a year? Are you going to fight for defrauded Americans saddled with student loans, or the shady schools ripping them off? It's pretty clear with whom President Trump and Betsy DeVos are standing. Over and over and over, President Trump, his administration betrayed the people he promised to fight for. I'm glad my colleagues stood up today. It was a bipartisan victory. It said to President Trump and Betsy DeVos and Majority Leader McConnell that kind of fraud, that kind of exploitation is something that we will no longer accept. To our veterans, to other students who were defrauded by these for-profit colleges.